Welcome everyone. My name is Raghav Jagannathan. Welcome to this KLST ILTA webinar on 5th of November 2025. Vinson Elkins, an AM law firm's journey from network file shares to Matter-Centric teams. Once again, my name is Raghav Jagannathan. Before I do a quick intro, we're going to open up a couple of poll questions just to understand from the audience couple of key kind of topics. If you can please respond back to us, I will really appreciate it. That'll help us understand what you guys care about when it comes to file share, migrations, and so on. While you respond to that, once again, my name is Raghav. I've been working with Microsoft Technologies since a very long time, 1995. I've spoken at many different conferences. I just was a recent speaker at the ILTACon conference. A couple of months ago, I spoke at the Evolve conference, SharePoint Copilot conference. We also do a number of webinars and seminars around the US and internationally as well. These are some of the QR codes for some of my contributions to the ILTA cause. I've contributed to ILTA peer-to-peer magazines, blogs, and forums. Outside of my community profile, I also am the president and CEO of KLST. We are a global software and services company. We work around 31 AM law firms, around 20 mid-sized firms, and six general counsels of Fortune 500 companies around the world. On the call here, I have our esteemed client and my friend, Sean Brady, who will introduce himself in a second. But just about KLST, today I'm representing, as I said, our KLST brand as well as our Cobalt brand, which is creates a software called netDocShare. netDocShare is a unique platform on the market that helps you view, edit, sync, search, provision NetDocuments content in SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, and file shares. So we're going to explore that in a second, but over to you, Sean. Just a quick intro about yourself and your firm.
Yeah, thank you, Raghav, and thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Sean Brady. I am currently the Global Director of Enterprise Applications for Vinson Elkins. I've been with the firm since 1997 in a lot of different roles, but I've been in this position for the past 2 years, a little bit over 2 years. And I've had the privilege of working with Raghav on a lot of projects here over the last 10 years, a lot of different things from SharePoint up through this. So excited to share with you a little bit today about where we are at. For those who don't know, Vinson Elkins, we're a AmLaw 100 firm based out of Houston, but offices in about 13 cities around the world, focused on a lot of different areas, as you can see here. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you our journey so far on this project. Just really quick, recently Durgesh Sharma joined us as our new Chief Technology and Data Officer. Shared a quote with everyone. For more than a decade, KLST has been a dependable partner for Vinson Elkins. Most recently, they delivered a solution that moved us from legacy network shares to Microsoft Teams and implemented Matter-Centric workspaces integrated with NetDocuments using netDocShare. That we're creating governed, secure foundation for modern collaboration and for the responsible use of Copilot for Microsoft 365 within our firm's data.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean. So we're going to make this a really cool collaborative quick chat as opposed to a regular webinar because the audience wants to know how you guys did it. This is an amazing journey. You took a very risky journey, if I may say. So the three series of questions, if you can also reflect on some of the key challenges you faced along the journey. For my first question here is, how did VNE approach this challenge of retiring traditional network shares while minimizing attorney workflows?
Yeah, so we actually started this work around this time last year, just trying to figure out, we knew we had a problem. We had a lot of stuff sitting on network shares. A lot of it was known to us, some of it wasn't, and it was being used in a lot of different ways. So we started the process trying to figure out, where can we put this information that people can continue to use it going forward, and then still give the firm access to it for governance, and you saw in the quote from Durgesh, for future OneDrive AI usage to make it more accessible. So early 2025, we started the process in earnest, and really we took 2 initial early phases of work to get going with this. The first was finding a tool that could help us to manage this. We looked at a lot. At the end of the day, we ended up with netDocShare, and I'll try and explain as we talk today about why that is. But the second piece was really understanding what we had. We worked with another partner to index all of the documents that we had sitting out on our network shares to find out what was where, what had a client matter number associated with it, what did not, and get a sense of the scope of what we were looking at. And you can see in the pie chart here, we have a lot of data sitting out there in a lot of different buckets. Some of it went out to OneDrive because it was personally related, but a lot of it, that 35 terabyte chunk there, turned out to be stuff that we could easily identify as needing to be moved into some other location. We went from there to the next best place, which was talking to the lawyers and saying, okay, we know this is out there. We know you use it. Why is it there? What are you using it for? What makes you want to use it on a network share versus inside of netDocuments or any other place that we could use it? From those conversations, we built an advisory group, attorneys, paralegals, professional assistants, a lot of people on that advisory group to help us start to answer those questions. More and more talking, trying to understand the different challenges that were out there. And really at the end of the day, one of the biggest takeaways from all of this was they liked working in Windows Explorer. It was familiar. It's something they had done for years in the past, not just at work, but everywhere. But it also got rid of, challenges with connectivity when they were at trial and things like that. So we learned very quickly that they worked on the network share because it was familiar, it was easy to use. We took all of that and we came back and said, okay, how can we replicate this functionality? At the time, we weren't really settled on a Teams-based approach for this. We just knew that we didn't want to continue to let people work on somewhat unmanaged network shares. We needed a better place to do the work. We met with a lot of companies that offer various integration solutions. Part of that investigation was with KLST, looking at netDocShare. And at the end, we decided to go with netDocShare because they had the ability to do something nobody else could, and that was provide synchronization into Teams from those network shares and replication into Teams from those network shares. I think that when we first started talking to Raghav about this, they didn't actually have that functionality. So it was something that was built up out of the discussions that we were having with them to try and come up with a solution. We knew we wanted to do some synchronization. We knew we wanted stuff to get into netDocuments in the long run. But we had this shorter term issue of getting things off of the network share. And that's where we ended up. And I think that, when we talk about the challenges around that, the real goal was to listen to what the lawyers were telling us. We use it because of this. Listen to what the paralegals were telling us. The lawyers asked us to set this up this way because it's easier to take to trial, because they like to work on Windows Explorer, and then build up the tool around that. And that's where we ended up with netDocShare. Really was the ability to get that replication into Teams very quickly for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, when we talk about migrations are extremely risky. And large-scale migrations, the risk is kind of exponential. Part of the reason why most firms are frankly scared to undertake this massive mammoth initiative of migrating from file shares into netdocs or Teams and whatnot. So from your experience with this large-scale migration, what are some of the key lessons that your firm learned from moving this amount of terabytes of data from file shares to Teams?
Yeah. So like I said, we did work with another partner to help us really map out all of the data that we had. And we went into this project with this thinking in the back of our mind that we were going to go out and ask everyone, do you really need this? Do we need to move this forward? And that turned out really to not be feasible. There was so much stuff out there. And our real end goal was to getting it into a system where we can manage it with Purview, eventually with FileTrail, and search it with Copilot in the long run. So we decided to move it all into Teams, which just meant we had more stuff to move. we set this up originally. We created a single migration server. We set an initial pilot of migrations to occur, and it took a month to run through. It took a lot longer than we thought it would do. We went back to KLST after that and said, okay, we've got all of this data. And it wasn't just that it was a large volume of data. In a lot of cases, it was that there were 100,000 or 300,000 files sitting inside of a single matter. And they were all 1K, tiny little files, but there were just so many of them. And that migration process has to go one by one by one by one. We worked with KLST on this, and we ended up spinning up 5 total migration servers. We split the work for the jobs across them, and our second migration took days, where the first migration took weeks. We shaved about 8 times the wait time off of getting it done, moving from our first migration to our second migration. The big thing we learned from that going forward was that it was really important for us not just to track what client matter number, who had rights, where was the files at for each one of these migration jobs, but also to track how many files were going to be affected by each migration job and what was the overall size of those. We fortunately haven't had very many files that were too big for teams or anything like that. So that hasn't been a big deal, but we've had enough where there were hundreds of thousands of files, and across those hundreds of thousands of files, there might be 300 or 400 gigabytes inside of a single matter that needed to be migrated. And so really understanding, these are the files I have to migrate, here's how many I have, here's how big they are, was really, really important in the future migrations to make sure that each set we were running wasn't too big or wasn't too large in terms of the number of files. In terms of it overall, we didn't have a whole lot of data issues. So at the end of the day, the biggest issues that we had as it related to data were file paths that were too long. Sometimes people have a lot of subfolders out there and they go very, very deep. So some of those were too long. We worked with KLST to come up with some solutions for that inside of the migration tool. But we do still find some files that have invalid characters or start the name of the file with a character that Teams doesn't allow. But for the amount of data that we're actually moving, that didn't happen too much. And those things are relatively easy to fix when they do come up. But overall, my advice with this is make sure you know your data really, really well, down to the count of the files and the size of the files. And then add as many machines and service accounts as you can to this process so that they can parallel process as much as possible and not get bogged down behind one very large matter.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for the insight. All right. So the next question we had was around biggest pain points. And some of these questions for the audience, these are some of the questions that's recently come up in our discussions, obviously with our key client BNE, but also with a lot of firms that we work with, and their CIOs and the IT staff and all the related parties often ask these questions to us. And we wanted to share with this audience BNE's perspective and BNE's experience with some of these key things that are burning topics. And one of the biggest pain points in these migrations are, especially when you move files from network shares to any location, could be netDocuments, could be SharePoint, could be Teams, is broken links. So you have a lot of data that you've created over the years that have inbuilt hyperlinks to documents on network share. It gets worse with Excel files. So you have linked files that links to each other. So everybody, I'm sure, is curious to know, how did BNE address this issue? How did they preserve document integrity post-migration?
Yeah, we not too distant past went through an iManage to netDocuments migration. We had a similar issue there where people had basically index files, Word documents, Excel files, which were nothing more than a large index to all of the other files that they kept. And sure enough, when we started talking to especially the paralegals setting up for this migration, we found out that they do have those same sort of Word documents and Excel files that were more or less indexes pointing to all of the other files that were sitting out on the network shares. So we went into this project already knowing that was going to be an issue. And we resolved that by just chatting with KLST about it. And we're up front and said, we really need to make sure that this is not a problem that we have. And we ensured that as we did the migration, we were capturing the UNC path to the file on the network share and the new URL to the file in Teams, writing that into a database. And then KLST created a bespoke solution for us, 365 add-in for both Word and Excel that will scan the document looking for those UNC paths and then replacing them with the appropriate URL in Teams. So very, very simple solution to this, what would otherwise have been a pretty tricky problem to solve. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thanks, Sean. So at this point, we are right in the halfway of the webinar. So we're just going to open up a couple of poll questions for the audience to answer based on some of the knowledge that Sean shared here. So if you guys can please answer those two questions, that's going to open up shortly. While you do that, we're going to continue our chit chat here. My next question is one of the questions that's come from a very large AmLaw firm who's also looking at a similar initiative. And one of their key concerns was change management. Change management is as I don't have to explain anything to you, Sean, is critical from a project of this magnitude to kind of move all this content where attorneys are used to working to a new platform like Microsoft Teams. So V&E, how is V&E handling change management? From how are you helping attorneys embrace this new way of working in Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, and maybe unlike a lot of other firms, this is our first really big foray into Teams and also into sort of modern work as well. So we approach this with the traditional way of approaching these things, as much communication as we could. We started off by asking questions of the people who we looked at their network shares and who had the most stuff. Basically, we went to them and said, hey, you are using these network shares a lot. What are you using it for? We listened to what they had to say. We asked more questions. We listened more. We went through a whole process, months of interviews talking with people. And I think one of the most important questions we asked was not about their pain points or what wasn't working or what they'd want to improve, but it was, what is the thing that you're doing today that we can't take away from you going forward? What is working so well about working on the network shares that you don't want to lose it when we move to whatever comes next? And as I previously mentioned, that was sort of this comfort level of working with Windows Explorer and having that native tool that they could continue to work with. Since then, as we've gone through this year and moved into training and teaching people, our real focus here is not to overwhelm people. Our goal is very clear. We want to move people from network shares to working with those files through Teams. And our main push, our main education here is using the sync feature in Teams to bring those files out of the Files tab in Teams and into basically OneDrive on their local machine. So each individual user can choose which of those files they want to keep with them locally on their machine. But while they're on the network, they have access to all of them inside of that familiar Windows Explorer interface that they're used to. And I think this is the key piece, right? We're focusing on sort of one piece of the pie here, that sync Windows Explorer relationship. We're not trying to overwhelm them with too much geek speak, for lack of a better word, in trying to teach them everything they could ever possibly do with Teams and working with your documents there all at once. We know we want to get to a point where we can teach them how to use Copilot with these documents. We know we want to get to a point where we want to teach them how to co-author with these documents to get them more engaged and more collaborative in the way they're working. But right now, we have a short 30-minute training session that's not overly broad, that really just hones in on the one piece that we want them to learn today. And then over time, we'll continue to introduce it. And I think that's the secret with all the modern work changes. From an IT professional standpoint, a lot of this stuff is like, yeah, it works. It's great. You should just do it. You should get in, you should co-author, and you can do all that. But for a group of people who are very used to working in a particular way, who have a very specific set of ways to work, because what they want to make sure is that when they're sitting in a courthouse and they don't have internet access, it works exactly the way they want it. Talking about co-authoring isn't really very useful. So this is really about, and the message to them was really about, from a change management perspective, here's the one thing we want you to change today, your way of thinking about getting to those files. And then we'll introduce more and more and more. And that seems to have been very well received. The lawyers that we work with on our committee have been happy to sort of keep it into that one little area. We do have tech savvy lawyers who kind of push it a little bit. So it's good, a good way to introduce them to this stuff at the same time.
Thank you, Sean. And I just want to also mention Encore Tech. I know that you guys are working with from a training perspective, which has been a great vendor to also deal with as we enable them to enable the attorneys on netDocShare and some of the other features that we have in Teams. All right, just moving on here. This is a very important question that has come up as we surveyed a number of different law firms. And one of the questions was, how do you even convince an attorney that Microsoft Teams isn't just one more network share folder? Your thoughts?
Yeah, and this one, when Raghav shared these questions with me, this one made me think a little bit. I started thinking, is there some sort of nugget of wisdom that I can share out? Some way of telling everyone, you can kind of elevate beyond if you do this one thing. And I didn't really come up with one, but I think the real answer to this is, at least in our environment, is really netDocShare. So what netDocShare does beyond helping us with the replication and the synchronization and all of this stuff is it takes a nice looking user interface of the actual NetDocuments workspace that's related to this matter, and it puts it in the same context as all of the files that used to be on the network share. And this starts to put together not just another place to go to work, but rather a single place to come to work going forward. Now, everything that is in the network share, everything that is in NetDocuments, and as we go on, my Copilot, my chats as it relates to that matter, all those sorts of things now can be in one spot. And the linchpin of that really was netDocShare, was being able to bring a view of that workspace directly into the team along with all the migrated files. And netDocShare does some nice things as well, like the ability to upload a file to NetDocuments directly from the Files tab. So if you've got a file that you're out there, maybe you have co-authored it, maybe you've just uploaded it from your machine that you got an email, it's very easy then to drop that into NetDocuments right from that one interface. And I think that's the key that we are going to press on, or we are pressing on to people, is that this now becomes a place that you can go and everything is there. And that pushes people more towards this place to work as opposed to just another place. I mentioned the synchronization functionality. The ability to get to that from local machines as well, I think is a huge benefit in terms of making this feel like a destination as opposed to, another place to look.
Before we go to the next question, Sean, we have a lot of questions in the chat, and we are going to answer some of them. But one of the questions that I'm not going to call out the name here, just from a confidentiality perspective, privacy perspective, is the person's asking why even migrate to Teams from network shares? Why can't he just migrate from network shares to DMS, to NetDocuments in this instance?
That's a great question. And we actually are continuing to talk about this a little bit, especially with materials that we're finding on the network shares, which relate to matters that are no longer active, and that we would just keep it, because it's there. I think there's a good chance we may move some of that directly into NetDocuments and skip the Teams piece. For us, we went to Teams because we wanted to offer that synchronization option. We wanted to give people the ability to work with that material in Teams, which we had better control over, in a way that was familiar to how they were used to doing it through the network share, which is Windows Explorer. And that was our primary reason for doing it. That is continuing to be our primary reason for doing it. As a matter of fact, we've moved on now at the firm where we no longer create network share locations for people when they need a new place to store files. And we put it in Teams. The question also could be, why ever create one on the network share at all? Why not always keep it in the DMS? And I think the answer to that is some of this material doesn't necessarily ever need to be in the DMS. It's not our initial work product. That already goes into the DMS by default. It can be, a CD we received from the client. It can be other materials that we've received in. It can be a large, download of documents from Pacer or Edgar that we want to have, we want to keep. It can be files that just are too big to really keep in the DMS efficiently. So there's a lot of reasons to have that network share functionality, and we extend that out through Teams to make it accessible, but also still manageable on the back end.
Thanks, Sean. We're reaching the end of the webinar here. We have a lot of questions. I'm going to try to answer them towards the end, but the last question we have here is a question that was marked as in the top 5, even though it's question number 6 here by the probe survey we did with a number of AM law firms. And this is basically a question which basically asks the fundamental question, which is, who are the parties involved in a project of this magnitude? When we think about a network share migration, is it an IT project or is it a firm-wide transformation? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I get to be the one sitting here talking with all of you today, but really this was a project that encompassed a lot of people at VNE, working with KLST, working with several other partners external to the firm as well. We started early this year with a OneDrive migration, which our systems and operations team, did an amazing job getting that done. That led way to the work and discussions on Teams. I mentioned that we have an advisory group made up of partners, associates, paralegals, professional assistants that we meet with regularly to kind of give us some guidance. We give them updates. They tell us what's working. We're members of our pilot team on this to get in there and work on this stuff early. On the sort of project administration side, we have a weekly meeting that is made up not just of technology group, but also people on our research and knowledge services team, people on our records and governance team. All of these people bring aspects of expertise to us around, things like governance, so that we're not forgetting, okay, if we bring this stuff into Teams, we need to remember to do this and this and this. And so it is absolutely a whole firm project to move this stuff. And to the question that we just had answered, there's always a question, why are we going to move this stuff to here? And sometimes that's an IT decision. Sometimes that's a governance decision as to why we're going to do it. But you really need to bring a whole group of people together to understand all the angles.
Thank you, Sean. We are just 2 minutes in to wrapping up the webinar. There's a bunch of questions here. We're actually going to take a few questions. The first question I have here is basically asking whether going to Teams caused a drop in netDocuments usage. Your thoughts?
So we haven't really seen that would be an issue yet. I think we're still maybe a little too early in the overall progress to say if that is true. Our hope, though, over time is that it actually improves netDocuments utilization, especially as it relates to client matters, because it brings what's on the network share and netDocuments so much closer together. Today, they really feel like two entirely different things. And our hope is with the team, they'll start to feel like a cohesive two ways of working with a similar set of data. I will mention, going forward, the netDocShare tool has the ability to synchronize what's in netDocuments with what's in Teams. And I think as we go further down this path and we start creating net new teams more often, we are going to look more and more closely at whether or not we should just be synchronizing those two together. We're not quite there yet, but I think that's a path we end up taking to improve our netDocuments utilization as opposed to decrease it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We are right on time here. As Sean mentioned, no one solution is a perfect solution or the right solution. When you migrate content, just large volumes of content from network shares into Teams or netdocs, with our solution, netDocShare, you do have the ability to synchronize content from net documents bi-directional one-way with SharePoint, Teams, network shares, and OneDrive for Business as well. We are right on time here. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. Thank you so much, Sean, for participating in this webinar.
Thank you for having me.
Grateful. Thank you so much.